Madman. Orsu says he's someone who has already tried to take his own life a few times, so there are some mental challenges going on in the boy's life. Hades is just thinking that this guy must believe he hasn't gone through more than 30 years of court sessions to notice when someone is lying or making things up. It seems like he fought alongside Calix's father for a while and just thinks that the chubby son was supposed to take over. If Calix took it by force, he already likes the kid. That's what he says. That if he took it by force with military power, someone in that territory supports him. There's no way to take over a territory with him to help at all. So as Ursula then saying that maybe all the knights of Sheikah territory are crazy following the command of a madman, now the guy is already trembling, right man. The king is the real deal and didn't even meet anything, just solved it by himself. So that's that, right? However, someone else calls out to His Majesty and says that falsely accusing someone of murder in addition to sealing the mana of your own half-brother is clearly a serious abuse of power. The king goes to say something and the fat guy already stands up, saying they have to summon Calix to come to the capital. The House of Lords would be responsible for evaluating the physical and mental condition he's in. The king knows that he couldn't really trust the House of Lords but says that fine for now, he agrees to summon him to the capital. But the investigation would be conducted by the palace administration, however, so they get upset. The House of Lords could send someone to accompany the process. The sucker just accepts it, right man. What else can he do? It's the king's word. Already outside, he goes to talk with the guy on the horse and explains that they have a big problem. For some reason he has no idea the king was protecting that kid Calix. Maybe it was fear that they would gain more influence in the Sheikah region. A look at the bastard hiding over there, Fifi, saying it's all good that this isn't a big problem. Ursel wants to know right why it's not a problem, and at that the Viscount tells Ursel to become the king's son-in-law. In other words, he's ordering him to give up his daughter, and Ursel immediately understands, asking if he's really suggesting giving his child to a dying old man. But the Viscount says he has a slightly longer-term plan. He's not referring to the current king, maybe in 10 years or 5 years, who knows. Right away Ursel gets it and says that if that's the case, maybe it's worth it. Ha ha, because he traded off his daughter like that, man, and 3 words. A few days later in Sheikah territory, a royal decree had arrived. Our boy tells them to read it, but Crod is standing there a bit hesitant. Calix just says he already knows what it is, so we should just speak up. And his friend says that the royal palace administration was summoning him there to explain the accusations he was receiving. Lauren wants to know which ones, and the guy says it seems that when you try to take your own life you damage your soul and they need to check if the soul is intact. Calix laughs, asking if apparently they're accusing him of going crazy, but he says it's fine, it'll even need to answer that nonsense. Just tell Russell to come up with an excuse and goodbye. Obviously, everyone is shocked, right man? It's an order from the king, and is he planning on defying His Highness? Damn, this boy is bold and asked why he have to run out of this house in a panic just because the king summoned him. Besides that, they're trying to prove he's crazy. I'm not sure, but this smells like Viscount Serve and the people trying to set him up. If they couldn't prove anything, they'd probably be killed on the way. That way their original goal would finally be achieved. Crod and Thomas say it's madness that they planned to kill a direct descendant like that, but they couldn't have to worry. They would risk their lives to make sure it didn't happen. Our boy stretches out in the chair, a lax staying that the ones who don't have to worry of him. That's because he's not going anywhere. Besides, they had already sent someone to the capital to fight in their place. The guys asked that he's really talking about Gerard. 2 weeks later, back in the capital, someone slams the table, call in for the king, asking what action they're going to take to resolve this Sheikah issue. They receive a message and they were coming to the capital. He's definitely planning something unscrupulous. The king asks what this supposed big plan of the boy is. Antonio replies that the boy destroyed the manor of the true heir. And now that retribution was about to fall on him, he was afraid. This was a very serious problem. The king says he agrees and wants to know then what they're going to do. Gamut. The guys nearby are seeing that the poor guy is getting screwed going against the king. Antonio then says not to worry. He personally would go visit that place and investigate the matter. Apparently, the king just thanks him, saying that he really is a very proactive person. Then the little butler beside him says it's time to go to the next topic. However, when he looks at the agenda, he seems shocked by the information. It was about the marriage of the fifth prince. That one was scared and surprised by the excitement. Must have been trying to use his daughter too. Didn't work out. Hub bastard. The king comments that he heard the mark was a daughter is intelligent and beautiful. Maybe it'd be a good idea for her to join with the fifth prince. Obviously, the chubby guy already gets all excited, saying this would be the greatest honor for his family. But then Outermore stands up angrily, telling His Majesty to understand that usually the prince has to choose from the girls that are already in the waiting line, man. Apparently there's some sort of royal lineup and he has to interact with the noble girls first. Antonio was all excited. I'm still not understanding the competition going on between this nobility crowd, but I know that offering up the daughter seems to be the top priority. And then the king asks Outermore if he's saying that the mark was a daughter, by any chance is inferior. The guy tries to argue about traditions and such, but already gets scolded by the king, right man? Stay at best not to question his authority in this place. I'll hold up now, right? The guy got scared, but now I'm starting to get it. It seems the royal folks were supporting the first prince, who's the doom with the black hair all swagged out golden shoulder pads. But from what the king said, he's wanting to make the other prince, right, the fifth one, the hair. Only problem is, since the royal supporters are backing the first one, if the king puts the fifth on the throne, they're screwed, right? You see it, right? He's dropping the little piece there of the king. It's like they've been abandoned by the king. But just at that moment, the door opens and the first prince walks in, and your first appearance you look tougher, now you're all skinny. He comes in saying there's something he needs to inform the king about. But man, the king just replies that he doesn't recall summoning him. So to be best, if he disappeared from there immediately, well, man, but the kid steps forward and says not until the king hears him. Obviously, the king just asks if his authority is being challenged. The kid plays dumb, saying he's not challenging any order. But of course, the king says that not leaving the room is disobedience and warns that he won't let him interfere with Seal's marriage. The kid then says he has no intention of getting involved in any of that. In fact, he kinked a deal a completely different matter. It was something he believes all the nobles there needed to hear. The king tells him to speak then if it's really that important. Then the first prince pulls out a sheet of paper and says it's about the current government of the Shikan reign. It was a message that came from this Count Russell Meagle. The king is wondering why, to him that Shikan business was already settled. Egghead over there in the corner though says it doesn't matter how far the Shikans are, they should at least send a messenger to explain why they weren't going to show up. But then they comment that they also need to remember whose mana was sealed. Since it was someone related to Marcus Antonio, it would be unfair. The Trumpi guy stands up, saying they don't even trust him. But Egghead just says that the person who will benefit from Shikan's fall being the one to go there and judge him is kind of unfair. Antonio asks why they're trying to trust the so-called this Count Russell. What if he's someone who's already working under Calix, who's suspected of being a criminal? But the other guy already jumps in saying that this Russell was the leader of the Blue Lions, an extremely honorable soldier who upheld the spirit of justice. Besides that, he received the Royal Order of Honor. In a country called the Land of Knights, it would be ridiculous not to trust someone like that. Antonio realizes he's running out of auctions and won't be the one to investigate Calix. The king tells everyone to calm down and says he's sure Antonio didn't mean that Russell couldn't be trusted. The Trumpi guy's looking kind of awkward there, not knowing what to do. But then the first prince asks why don't they examine the content of the letter. The king says fine, but he'll read it aloud. The letter came from Russell and said that in that place, there really was an assassination attempt. In Prince Granvini, whose plans were uncovered and was going to be executed, sealed his own mana as the price. All the punishments were carried out and delivered by him and Russell himself, the regional representative. In addition, all the knights agree unanimously, and that was their response to the Council of Lords. Suddenly, someone in the back asked to verify the signature. It's that Marcus Souvenir who says he once served under Russell and knows his handwriting. Seems like that Marcus was one of the kingdom's big shots, and it seems he really admires Russell a lot. He replies that there's no doubt at all that this is Russell's handwriting. Now, Antonio realizes he's screwed. How is he supposed to counter what the prince said, what Russell said, and now what the mark was confirmed? Not to mention that damn first prince showed up the perfect time and drawn a lot of attention. A new battle for succession is clearly about to start. The cursed actor doesn't give up, man. He says that even if all this confirmed is still need to know who actually tried to assassinate Granvini. They couldn't just trust what a low-level assassin said. They need physical evidence. The bald guy, however, says they can't leave that place without someone in charge. Antonio agrees and says that Calix, who's only 15, from what he heard the boy doesn't even have the skill to become a knight. To him, someone who owns a territory should at the very least be a sword master. Eckerd laughs